The base is dropped on a dreary Wednesday morning here in Atlanta, Georgia. Soccer Down here live for a Wall Pass Wednesday edition, February 27th, 1 day away from Atlanta United Herediano second leg of the Concacaf Champions League round of 16. That second leg series started last night with 3 games. No real shocks, I guess, outside of maybe one final result, although or one result on the day, one final result was not really a shock. Houston had a little bit of a bumpy ride getting their job done. Tigres had no semblance of a bumpy ride in dispatching Saprissa. But, I mean, that's what we expected. Saprissa did really well in the home leg, but they needed more than the one goal to get through in Monterrey, and it wasn't going to happen. Tigres have too much firepower. And Toronto had to fight through the cold and sandy field at BMO Field, and even the groundskeeper was getting frustrated, and he clapped back on some folks on Twitter. It was one of those nights in Toronto.
Wow.
Yeah, they got an early goal, 19th minute, but they were unable to find anything else and conceded one on the break, and it's a 1-1 draw. Independiente from Panama. Los Vikingos are still alive in the tournament. Let's hear some highlights from last night. We'll start with the first game in Canada, Toronto and Independiente.
Finding his way through. Slipped 1 second effort, curling, and a nice save by Guerra. Morrow had gone for it. And this attack find its wheels without him. Morrow crossing, header is in! That's a first! Hamilton climbs onto the board for Toronto Football Club. 1-0 to TFC. Played long in behind. Hamilton, Osorio looking for Morrow. Morrow! Ball knocked down. Guerra got enough. It's cleared away from the line by Torres.
Toronto got that goal in the 19th minute. That gave them a lifeline. I mean, you get that goal, you need 3 more. That's looking possible at that point. Independiente played really well. I mean, you have to give them credit for being able to see this out in very unfamiliar conditions and in a situation that they really don't have much experience. And I've been really impressed with this club.
And they had and for everybody, I noticed that some folks on social media were just sitting there saying that Independiente were just hanging back and just trying to clear for 90 minutes and hang on and survive.
Yes.
I mean, they had it, and they had a chance in the 37th, and
I
that
believe that was the first time.
Yeah.
Right before that was the first time that Bono touched the ball. So They did early on. They just sat, and John, I think what they did is they sat back to see what's going on in this game to try to get used to this thing. They give up a goal. Okay, let's continue to sit. And then they get to that point late in the first half, and it's like, you know what? We can play here. Let's play.
Yeah. And you had that opportunity in the 37th. That was a just miss. And you go into the half down 1-0, but then you get what was not on the highlight package was the absolute howler that was put out there by Laurent Simon that created the chance for the equalizer in the match, but pretty much just put everything away. But you look at that pitch, and it looked like a sand pit, and the ball was checking up. It was doing beach soccer kind of things. And I think that, to your point, I think that once Independiente had that first opportunity and realized, hey, we can play here. You saw Toronto FC be very physical because the officiating was not going to whistle a whole lot of fouls. I mean, there were a couple of 2-point takedowns that I saw in the first half too that were just kind of let go and really should have been cards that weren't. And no, not even any whistles at some points. But Independiente adjusted to the style of play. They adjusted to the pitch. They adjusted to the conditions, which were hanging out around 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And it looked like that they did make a big step to sport check and bought a lot of undergarments. And Good on them for advancing. Honestly, good on them. Way to go.
Yeah, that's what I love about this tournament is you get introduced to clubs like this. I will keep up with what's going on with Los Vikingos, whether it's Concacaf Champions League or when they get back into competition in Panama. I'll check in on the Vikings, see how things are going, because I've been really impressed. I mean, there's players in this team, Omar Brown, Romy Shivey, who I think are potential MLS players. That's another element of this tournament is you get these guys who showcase themselves on a bigger stage and move on. And for Central American teams, this is that big stage. So this is a huge opportunity for the club to continue to grow. Also, selling players as part of that growth, and that will probably happen in the summer transfer window. So keep an eye on some of these players that you're getting to know from Independiente. The flip side is Toronto, and Jacob Austin has a great question kicking us off on a Wall Pass Wednesday. Can Toronto use their annual salary amnesty on Simon? Man.
That's about right.
I mean, let's go back to the start of last season. So he goes to LAFC. Not happy about it at first because of promises Montreal had made to him. There was also care for one of his children, and he didn't want to go. He ends up going. He's named captain of LAFC. Did well. I mean, I thought he was good in the first half of the year. He's good enough to get called in to just about, to the training squad for Belgium for the World Cup. I believe he was the last cut or the next to last cut from that roster going to the World Cup. From there, it has been a steep downhill descent for Laurent Simon. He left LAFC in kind of a whole awkward situation, but the club, I thought, handled it as well as you possibly could. It was a big deal for him to go to France, and he is blessed by the club at a point where they really couldn't afford to lose him. And he didn't play much over there, gets the opportunity to come back to MLS. He ends up in Toronto, making Montreal fans thrilled, probably making LAFC fans thrilled as well, because it kind of looked a little bad on all fronts. But then they've seen him play. And in these two games, you can put 3 of the 5 goals at his feet.
Yep.
I mean, it's rough. I can't remember seeing a player go from less than 12 months ago being on the edge of going to the World Cup with a favorite. Belgium was one of the contenders in 2018. Going to a World Cup with a big team, and now to a point that you're getting lit up by a club nobody had heard of a couple weeks ago.
Yes. So then let me ask you this.
Look.
Yes, it is. When it comes to this particular matchup and Independiente going through, in the parlance of the college basketball tournament that is set to happen next month, would this have been a 1 being knocked off by a 16?
No, Toronto wasn't a 1.
So then how would you have phrased
It's like
it?
a 2-15, 3-14.
Okay.
I mean, it's an upset. I think it's the biggest upset in CONCACAF Champions League history. I mean, I'd have to go back and find some other comparisons, but I don't remember a club in Independiente's situation who was in the second division in 2017 make this type of leap in a couple of years to knocking off the, runners-up from the previous tournament. That's a big, big, big deal. It's a great thing for CONCACAF, and it's a great thing for the tournament. So I'm excited to see what happens next. They're going to get likely Sporting Kansas City. And I hope Peter Vermes has been scouting, because this Independiente team has a lot of speed, a lot of quickness, and they really have no fear. So we'll see how things go in that setup. That will be in the quarterfinal round. We'll know their opponent, which, again, is likely going to be Sporting Kansas City. They have a 3-0 lead going down to Toluca. Toluca fired their manager after getting thrashed over the weekend. Hernan Cristante, a legend.
Thrashed 3 times in a row.
Yeah, but I mean, this isn't just your run-of-the-mill manager either. Hernan Cristante is a legend at Toluca, and they just couldn't see this out. They couldn't wait and see if this is going to work out. So he's gone. after giving up 10 goals in their last 3 matches. I would not expect Toluca to turn this around. So
No.
Sporting Kansas City, Independiente in the next round. We know the other quarterfinal matchup, Houston Dynamo and Tigres. Let's hear how the Dynamo got there, because it was not an easy night in Houston. The game was delayed, close to 2 hours?
Yeah.
Due to lightning in the area.
In February.
Welcome to Houston. It happens. And the Dynamo conceded first, which was the one thing they really couldn't do, but they had a super sub off the bench to fix it. Here's the highlights.
Ball through. It's in. It's in for Navarro. Elise breaking through. Manotas. Houston back in front. Manotas. It's in. Off the deflection. Breathing room for Houston. One that's been to a final here in this competition. Popped up. And handled by Willis. Rain and thunder could not keep Houston from their ticket to the quarterfinal.
The Dynamo punched that ticket to the quarterfinals in a bumpy ride. Navarro got the goal in the 72nd for Guastatoya. That made everything level, both teams with a goal on the road. Mauro Manotas, 5 minutes later, opens the scoring for the Dynamo, then gets the clincher in the 85th minute. He didn't start, and Houston took some chances with the starting lineup. We wondered about Cabezas. He did not make the 18, which is something to keep an eye on when it comes to the Dynamo. Manotas and Elise were also on the bench to start. Boniek Garcia, who's been a longtime veteran, on the bench to start. Tomas Martinez, their number 10, on the bench to start. You saw a midfield of Vera, Seren, and Tommy McNamara with the Dynamo. I'm really excited to see McNamara in Houston. I want to see if he gets a lot of time. Kyoto got the start on the left side. Marlon Hairston, another new face with the Dynamo, started on the right. Pena started up top. And when they had to go to the bench, they were able to go to those 3 stars, Manotas, Elise, and Garcia. And Manotas gets 2. Elise has an assist, and the Dynamo see it out and move on. Were you surprised by anything in this one?
The lineup from Houston to start. When you're in as tight a matchup as this is, and I know that a lot of MLS teams are trying to balance and come up with that balance of knowing that the beginning of the regular season is just around the corner. And, for me, the guys on the bench, I probably would have had starting just so I could not get into the situation that they got into and having to come back against a team that was putting the ball in the net for the first time against you. So, for me, it was the lineup, and then I would have flipped what we saw just to make sure that you get out on the front foot and don't have to rebound the way that you did to make sure that you end up getting the Duke. So that to me was the biggest thing. But hey, when you've got that firepower on the bench and they come in and Manotas gives you 2 and you advance, good on you for doing it. But like I said, I would have flipped the situation when it came to the lineup and who was sitting and who was starting.
It's easy to say flip it when you get the result, but if you start those guys and don't get the result, then you're putting Sunday's match in a little bit of jeopardy, and you're putting next week's match in a little bit of jeopardy. And in a team with the depth that the Dynamo have, I think they do kind of live on those edges of risking things like this. Now, I'm curious to see what they do on Sunday now. They're through. They're going to move on. They're going to play next week against Tigres. You're going to have your first choice lineup in those games against Tigres. So you're going to have to punt a little bit on Sunday. Do you see one question is Cabezas. Is he going to be ready to factor in next week?
Right.
If he's not, you might have to rest Seren in the match on Sunday. You're probably going to keep Manotas, Elise, Kyoto, Tomas Martinez, guys like that on a fairly short leash going into this. They might be in the 18. They might play off the bench on Sunday or on Saturday in league play. Sorry, and we'll see how they manage it, because this is difficult for a club like Houston that just doesn't have as many phases as Atlanta United does. Really not much to get into when it comes to the Tigres game. It was a thrashing. It was dominant. Ended up 5-1, and it was 4-0 before Saprissa got their first. You just came out all guns blazing, and Tigres was not going to let this one get away from them.
And the two names for the casual fan are Gignac and Inter Valencia, because those are the ones that we have the history of, and we know what they've been able to do in the past. And Gignac has been tremendous in league play this year with their action at the top of the ladder in Liga MX. And last night, it was Inter Valencia's name that popped up on the score sheet a lot last night.
Yeah, so quarterfinals, here's what we know so far. Houston Dynamo, Tigres will be next week. Independiente will play the winner of Kansas City Toluca next week. We'll know tonight what another quarterfinal matchup is. The Red Bulls 2-0 lead going in to Red Bull Arena to face Atletico Pantoja. They should be just fine. They might have to break out the orange ball in that one. Could be a little bit of snow on the ground. And Santos Laguna hosting Marathon. Santos goes in with a 6-2 lead. They'll be just fine. So you're likely going to look at the Red Bulls and Santos Laguna in the quarterfinal round. And then at the top of the bracket, Monterrey and Alianza play tonight in Monterrey. Scoreless going in. I'm kind of expecting something like we saw from Tigres.
Yeah.
I think Monterrey really turns it on, doesn't put anything at risk here, and they just see this through. And then tomorrow, Atlanta United hosting Herediano. Atlanta United has to overturn a 3-1 deficit. One thing that has been a little unclear, and we'll make this clear now, that the Concacaf regulations are widely available, I think to some at least. If it is level at the end of regulation time, and the only way this is level at that point is if it is a 3-1 Atlanta win. If it's level at the end of regulation time, it goes to penalties. Anything else, you're going to be done at the end of the 90 minutes, and plus stoppage time, of course, because of the away goal situation. So 3-1 Atlanta, it goes straight to penalties. There's no extra time until the final. The final has extra time. Round of 16, quarterfinal, semifinal, no extra time, goes straight to penalties if it's level at the end of the 180 minutes. So, Atlanta United would not like to have their CONCACAF Champions League campaign come down to penalties. Don't want to see that. You want to see them get it done. It's not going to be easy, and we've got some questions on a Wall Pass Wednesday about that scenario. We'll get into that after this break. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Today's show is presented by Apolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience, an ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, February 27th edition. It's a Wall Pass Wednesday edition. We're taking your questions, and there are lots of questions about Atlanta and Herediano on Thursday. Let's start with Jensen Brock from earlier. He says, Tito has a good defensive work rate. Some people would argue with you on that one. I'm with Jensen on that. I think some people would say that he doesn't. I like his work rate. I'm okay with that. But Tito has a good defensive work rate, capable of magic at 40 yards out. Barco's very talented, seems to dribble himself out of possession. Is it time to see Tito for Barco in the starting 11, or would you find a way for both to start? My opinion is that in the 3-4-3, you just can't find a way for everybody to start. In a 4-2-3-1, if you wanted to play in that type of role, you could play Joseph as the forward. You could play Tito, Pitti, Barco across the attacking three with two midfielders out of either Lorenowitz, Remedi, Nagbe as the holding midfield and in a line of four defensively. That's not what the team's worked on in preseason. So in the 3-4-3, I think it's difficult to get all of them into the lineup. Unless you're moving a Barco or a Pitti into a very unfamiliar role as an 8 and making the central midfield, I think, even more unbalanced. I'm not a fan of that. So I think it's down to the occasion. And in this one, I would be tempted to start Tito one way or another just because of what he gives you in the final third and just his knack for coming up big in big moments.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think that a lot of Atlanta United fans just have to look at this year. This is going to be case-by-case basis. This is going to be multiple competitions, schedule compression, all this stuff that you throw into the pile. It's going to be a case-by-case basis. So don't be upset if you see one thing over another because it is looking at what you've seen on film and what you're looking at substitutionally and how you think you can best attack folks. So this is going to be game at a time. And that sounds very broadcaster cliche-ish, if I could get my upper plate to work. But this is what it's going to be, and I think you're right. I think that Tito does get the start for this one in particular, but just a reminder, because of the roster being as deep as it is and formationally doing what you do, things are going to be a little different, and it's going to be different on a game-by-game basis.
Yeah, I think it's going to evolve a little bit game to game. I would be tempted to start Tito in place of Barco here, just
Agreed.
Because of the situation. And I don't know if that's going to be the case because it looks like it's been mostly Pitti, Barco, and Joseph as the group together. And I think, too, I've talked about it a lot from Thursday. I feel like Barco got frustrated, and that was part of the dribbling himself out of possession. Got frustrated about the lack of calls, got frustrated, and instead of turning around to playing simpler and playing quicker, shorter passes, he wanted to make something happen and forced it a bit. It's not the right decision, and it's something that he's going to have to learn from. But I feel like Tito in this situation, when you need goals like this, it seems like Tito usually finds them. So that's where I would go, is Villalba in the starting lineup. I wish you could find a way for both to start, but you are also balancing, and this is what's so difficult about the situation. You're also balancing, implementing a philosophy and a base shape and a baseline way of playing. You're implementing all that. Now you're implementing it in a competition that you're trying to advance in as well, but you are implementing that for the long haul. You don't want to sacrifice everything you've worked on all preseason for 4 or 5 weeks. You don't want to sacrifice that here if you don't have to. And that's going to be the question for Frank de Boer is, do you have to get the job done in this game? Do you need to go to a different shape? Do you need to do something different to get the job done here and then go back to what you've been working on going forward? That's just going to be really an assessment of the comfort level of the squad.
Yeah.
Later in a year, it's easy to get out of your comfort zone. At this stage, it's not as easy, and it's going to be down to DeBoer to make that decision.
Yeah, and it just you're looking at, okay, if this team does X, then I have to do this in return and take my personnel and sit there and plug it into that space. So, no, for me, be surprised by nothing, anticipate everything, and anticipate anything when it comes to roster formation as to how best you think you can attack a particular team, knowing that you've got another game around the corner, knowing that you have to rest individuals, knowing that individual X can do this for me, but I'm going to need him down here. So it's going to be an interesting juggling act for Frank DeBoer and the staff this year to try to work their way through multiple competitions and see what you need. And so I'm like I said, back to our original point. I think that it should be Tito in the match against Herediano off the start.
Percy Herrera has made a bold prediction. Independiente beats Kansas City.
That is bold.
That's bold. I don't know, Percy. I don't know if you need to take that one to the betting window just yet.
Take it to the pay window.
I'm going to go with no, but
so they're not Vermont from a couple of years ago?
No, I'm not expecting that. I'm not expecting that at all. But it's not going to be easy for Kansas City. And first they have to take care of Toluca in Toluca. I think they'll handle that. Then they have a league match on Saturday. And Independiente plays this weekend in Panama as well. And then they dial it up next week. I think Kansas City has more depth. I think they're a better team. I think Kansas City's a better team than Toronto. I think they'll get by Independiente. They should. You wonder how long the Cinderella slipper can hold on. We'll have to see. I'm not going to go there with you, Percy. I think it's going to be Kansas City moving on to the semis.
Yeah, I do too.
All right, we're going to get into the U.S. soccer news from yesterday about basically repeating the Copa America Centenario in 2020. We're going to get into that with Mike Conti at 10 o'clock. Nathan Pugh had a question about it. We'll dig into some of the ramifications there because there definitely are some interesting ones. Can't say I was surprised to see that, so we'll get into all the details there. Let's get to this question from Katie Weaver before we go to break. What can Atlanta United learn from Toronto's CONCACAF campaign this year? Does their demise lift hopes of other smaller teams? Bigger picture, what will the soccer scholars of the future say about Toronto of the last couple seasons? Also, was that pitch made of sand last night? Yes on the last one. The groundskeeper basically said so because they installed the field in November in wintertime in Canada, and it was not the ideal time to do that. I don't know why they did that then. I guess it's just the only time they had to do it. I wonder about how things work in Toronto in terms of this field. It seems to be an ongoing issue. I would like to think there's somebody out there who can keep it in better shape. No offense to the current grounds crew, but yeah, it's either they're not getting the resources they need or they're not making the right decisions. I don't know what, but there have to be grass fields in Canada that play better than that. There have to be.
Yeah, and
grass grows in Canada, right?
Yes, it does. It does.
I mean, I'm assuming, and it probably is. Grows at least somewhat in all times of the year, or if it doesn't grow, it at least doesn't look like a beach.
Yeah, it was beach soccer. It was a demonstration sport for an upcoming Olympiad.
Yeah, it was
but
weird.
I mean, consider the alternative. And we've seen in the past at BMO where if they didn't treat it like it was, Lake Lanier Islands or something, that it was going to end up looking like that chocolate pudding that we always see and easily uprooted and chunky. And if you try to make any kind of a slide tackle, you're going to bring up a chunk of turf that's bigger than a handful, and then you're having to tamp all that stuff down. So given the choice of the BMO that we've seen in the past that doesn't have any kind of a sand base and is just easily overturnable, that just looks absolutely gross and does absolutely nothing for you, getting what we got last night just to make sure that you had an even playing surface that didn't respond like we've seen it. I'll take the sand and I'll take playing on a beach as opposed to playing on something that is absolutely abused by the weather and is just counterproductive to the sport in general. I know it's a no-win situation for the grounds crews and that, but do you want ugly and unfunctional, or do you want ugly and somewhat functional? And I think we got a bit of the latter last night, even though really you're just kind of throwing up your hands and it's like making the best of a bad situation. But I'll take what it was last night, considering all of the winter warnings that they've had and temperatures minus 15 and minus 20, just, yes. So it was like, 10 degrees? It's like minus 15, so minus 30, so 0. So using my old quick conversion rate, but no, it's bad winds off of the lake. You're right there on the lakefront. Just take the sand as your experience, learn from it, go, get out the door, you're done.
And they are done. It could have been worse. It definitely could have been worse. What does Atlanta United learn from their campaign this year? I don't know yet, because I think this Toronto campaign this year is just kind of unique in the fact that they went on the road, laid an egg. They weren't prepared with their roster. I think that's the biggest thing you learn, and Atlanta already knew this, is you take care of your business early in the offseason. You get your roster in as early as you can. You don't leave things late, and you don't let disagreements with key players fester to a point where you could potentially lose them on the eve of the season. So I don't think they learned anything. I think they reinforced what they already knew. Does the Toronto's demise lift the hopes of other smaller teams? Yeah, absolutely. Every Central American team that qualifies for this tournament is going to look at what Independiente's done and say, we can do that. That's great. That's a good thing for this event. And I hope in the long run it helps lead to, I don't know if it's group stage, I don't know if it's more extended play, I don't know what it is. You need to find that balance, but I want to see more games in this tournament. I want to see it go as close as you can to what Europe does. I don't want to see just around a 16 quarterfinal, semifinal, final with MLS teams involved. I think more games in CONCACAF would be good if the level is good, if you're getting good matches out of it. And more upsets like Independiente, I think you'll get that. The bigger picture that Katie asks is, what will the scholars of the future say about Toronto of the last couple of seasons? You look at 2016, they made the final. They lost. They were the better team in the final, but they lost on penalties. 2017, they won every trophy in front of them. 2018, they didn't make the playoffs. They won the Canadian Championship. They lost in the Campeones Cup, which is a one-off. It doesn't have a ton of meaning yet, but it's another loss in a big game. And then now in 2019, to start it off, you don't make the quarterfinals of CONCACAF.
Yeah, you don't make it out of the opening round.
I don't know how this team's viewed. It's complicated, and it shouldn't have been. I think they should have been viewed as easily the best team out of Canada in the modern era. I mean, you're comparing them to the Vancouver Whitecaps of '79 that won North American Soccer League. That's probably your comparison, and I think it shouldn't have been a comparison if this Toronto team did everything that they could have, and I don't think they did. I think they left too much on the table. Canadian championships are very small trophies. As it currently stands, it'll be a little better this year with more teams in it. It's still, giants against minnows. So Toronto winning that, you're basically knocking out a couple other MLS teams. It's okay. It's not great. So you've done that consistently. You've been to 2 MLS Cups. You won 1. Then in the swan song for your big 3 of Giovinco, Altidore, Bradley, you didn't make the playoffs. You came up short in the CONCACAF final in penalties. You had a ton of injuries that were outside of your control, and that will be a little bit of an asterisk to it for me always. But they didn't – I feel like they didn't prepare for the end of this. They didn't prepare either to extend it, to give Giovinco more money to continue and keep him happy, or they just didn't plan for what was next. And now it's been made worse. They should not be where they're at right now. There's no excuse for it. And I'm going to go ahead and throw this in from Trains before we go to break, kind of slamming this in.
Here we go.
Trains, somehow I became the biggest Toronto apologist. And And Trains asks, how do you justify paying perennially hurt Josie over Giovinco? That's because of news that came out from Christian Jack on the broadcast last night on TSN that Toronto and Josie are in the final stages of doing a new contract through 2022. The agreement is there. Everything's not official yet. We don't know salary figures. That's first off. So we don't know if let's play it back real fast. Giovinco was making $7 million per year. Toronto said that they were never told by Giovinco and his people that he was willing to take less on a new deal. He says he was. All right, we don't know what that number would have been. Bradley's in the last year of his deal. We'll have to see what happens with him. You are bringing in Pozuelo for what looks like just under $5 million a year, which is what, the same money Josie and Bradley are making?
Yeah,
roughly.
So right. I'll effort that.
So you're bringing him into that level. Okay. I don't think Josie's getting a raise. I'm assuming. Not in a 3-year deal at his age and with his injury history. I would assume it's probably going to be similar money to continue for 3 more years.
Yeah.
If he's getting a raise, I can't justify paying him at all. I can't justify that one. If he's getting the same money to continue and you've added Pozuelo, which is a little different than Giovinco, he's more of the Vasquez role as opposed to the Giovinco role, you better have gotten it right on Pozuelo. I think Josie's still an effective player in this league. I think he is a player that you can count on double-digit goals, and there's not a lot of those. There's just not. He does have an injury history, and you have to manage him, but we've seen players and teams be able to do that over the years. I want to see the numbers before I give complete judgment on it. But if it was one or the other, if you're going to break it down that simply and you had to choose one or the other to keep, I'm keeping Giovinco every day. There's no question. I don't think it was that case. I don't think it was strictly a one or the other deal. And a lot of that is down to, I think they poorly handled Giovinco. And I've said that from day one. So if I'm making apologies for him, I've been extremely critical about how they've handled Sebastian Giovinco. And there is no way that should have lingered from last year during Concacaf until the start of preseason this year, to the point that you open your preseason with Giovinco saying he's unhappy. And all of the things that happened after that, you can't do that. You knew the situation. You needed to transfer him in the summer last year, and if you didn't have the guts to do that and call time on your 2018 season, you needed to do it at the very beginning this year, or you needed to re-sign him. It was one or the other. And if you weren't going to re-sign him, and he wanted a new deal, and he wasn't going to be happy if he didn't get it, you're not going to play out the 2019 year with him. That you had to realize that was never going to happen. So you either re-sign him or you move him on, and that's it. And that's it. And you don't let it linger, and you don't let it be a distraction, and you don't let it permeate the whole squad. That was very poor by Toronto. But I don't think it's one or the other, Trains. I really don't think it's keeping one over the other. I don't think they're that planned out, to be honest. That's the problem, is I don't think they even thought that way. I think it was, well, how do we deal with Giovinco? Okay, we're going to have to sell him now, and we just have to take what we can get. All right, well, let's do that. Okay, now we have to get to Josie because he needs a new deal. And they're probably after that going to be like, oh, now we have to talk to Michael and figure out a new deal for Bradley. Uh-huh. So I just don't think there's a plan. So I don't think it's one or the other. But if I'm the biggest apologist, I'm just trying to make friends with our listeners on Barn Burner. That's all.
And Josie's base and total compensation was 5. Michael Bradley base of 6, total compensation 6.5.
And Giovinco was 7, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if he gets a raise, I'd be shocked. If he stays at the same level, okay with it. If he takes a little bit less, that's probably the best deal if Toronto is able to pull that off. But we don't know if that's the case. Or if he takes a little bit less in base, but there's more an incentive to keep him around the same number, or even potentially a little bit of a raise, that would be a very smart way to do it. And that would hedge your bets a little bit on the injury history. So we'll see how they structure it. We'll see more details as they come. But that's Toronto for you. It's an interesting tale, and it's not done yet. We'll see how they get started in MLS play this weekend. Let's take a quick break, come back, more Wall Pass Wednesday after this.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student-athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Well past Wednesday, February 27th. SDH, Jason Longshore, John Nelson with you. One more thing on Toronto before we move on. If the only way you could keep Giovinco was to keep him at the same contract, I wouldn't have done it. I'm okay with Ali Curtis and Bill Manning saying that. He would have been, if you do a 3-year deal, which is what they're doing with Josie, if you did a 3-year deal, he's 35 at the end of it. I don't think he's going to be worth $7 million at 35 years old in 3 years. I wouldn't give him that. Okay. But you make that decision, and then you move on. And this was my conversation on Twitter with Andrew Wiebe as all this was breaking out. They said that, or Andrew was talking about how Toronto made the decision not to pay him. And that's fine. I wouldn't pay him $7 million either. But if you made that decision... If you had not made that decision until after the start of training camp this year, somebody's not doing their job. That decision should have been made last year at the beginning of the year, especially after Giovinco started chirping about new deal, wanting to stay. I would have made him an offer to keep him at a number that was manageable, a number that you felt like was going to be worth it. Doesn't matter in terms of the cap because it's a designated player move, but whatever number you feel is right, leave a little wiggle room for negotiation. You can't find the deal, you can't find the deal. Summer transfer window, you find the best deal if it's there. If you can get $8 to $10 million for him, you move on. If you can get $5 to $6 million, you seriously think about it, and if it's a club he wants to go to, you move on. If you're still at the same situation in the off-season going into 2019, before you get to training camp, and he doesn't want to take the deal that you've offered, you move on. And you find the best deal, and you don't have him come to camp. Period. That's the problem, is that they kept punting it, it appears. Might be wrong, but just judging from what's come out publicly, they kept punting the decision further and further down the road, and it became a huge issue. And it wasn't handled right. You didn't get maximum value for him, and now it's created a cloud over the squad. And now it's pushed everything back in bringing players in. Pozuelo's going to hit the ground running coming out of the international break. So March 30th, he'll probably be in the team straight away, coming from Belgium. You're still trying to sign TAM guys because you wanted to get the designated player deal done to see what you needed in terms of TAM guys. You're not going to get them before the season starts. So now your punting decisions on Giovinco has now punted the start of your season and punted getting any kind of form and cohesion going into 2019, it's poor planning. It's just awful. So I think you have to be better prepared, and that's the problem. And was that an issue because Bezbachenko left? Was it an issue before Bezbachenko left? Was it an issue because of the transition? We don't know. But something went horribly, horribly wrong, and it's affected their CONCACAF run this year. It's going to affect them early in the season. We'll see how long it affects them in 2019. But they didn't handle it well, in my opinion.
No, for me, it's going all the way back to the chirping moments last year with Giovinco. And he starts mouthing off at that moment. There should have been discussions internally about the big three, trying to figure out what to do. What do we give Giovinco? Because what's the deal with Al Hilal? 3 years at 10 million euro?
I don't know if that's truly been reported.
Okay, because that was the number that I remembered off the top of my head when it came to what was being discussed. Yeah,
so we don't know for sure.
But for me, this is a systemic failure, and you get exposed for kicking the can down the road. And there's only so much time that you can do that and try to figure out, we'll fix it later, we'll fix it later, we'll fix it later. Well, now it's too late to fix it. And you got what, the team overseas decided that they wanted to allegedly give you in getting Giovinco over. And then signing Altidore to this deal, and once again, we don't know what it's about, but would I pay him right now that number? No, that he had in his last deal. And then you've got Michael Bradley to figure out. And this is a front office mess. And you're seeing what happens when you just sit there and you don't handle your business, and then you don't handle your business well. Sometimes they're mutually exclusive. Sometimes they're blended together. And in this case, it's blended together, and it is an awful mix right now. And you've been bounced out of CONCACAF Champions League. And how hot is Greg Vanny's seat going to be if the start is what we think it's going to be with everybody coming in from the 4 wins?
I think it has to be pretty hot after the way CONCACAF went. It has to be pretty hot if Laurent Simon keeps doing what he's been doing. And I think Vanny definitely has excuses. I'm not putting all this on Greg Vanny. I don't think he forgot how to manage.
No.
I don't think he was a bad manager when they won. I don't think any of that. But the buck stops with the manager, and people are going to start talking, and people are going to start looking, and that's going to be an issue. So we shall see what happens in Toronto. There's other news around the league. We'll get to that in the next segment. We'll also get to Mike Conti joining us at 10 o'clock. We're going to talk formations a little bit later in the show. There's been questions about the 3-4-3 and how it could look and what other options there are and who should be where. We're going to get into all that later in hour number 2. Next up, some news around the league. It's an interesting time. We're also focused on CONCACAF Champions League. This is the week before the MLS season starts. You're getting all of those usual media availabilities that are going on. Don Garber speaking to ESPN. You're getting lots of different press conferences happening. We'll try to catch you up on some of the big nuggets that have dropped over the last couple of days. Hang out with us. We'll be right back.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out.
Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Final segment, hour number 1. SDH, February 27th. Going to get caught up on all of the news around the start of the MLS season on Saturday. Don Garber spoke with Taylor Twellman of ESPN yesterday. There's a video interview as well as a pretty long story. Some of the nuggets out of that, he was asked, in your 20 years, when did things change for you? What franchise convinced you of the thought, you know what, we can have more than 18 to 20 teams in this league? And he said, I think Atlanta probably did. Seattle in 2009 comes in, and nobody ever thought we'd have tens of thousands of fans and 30 to 40,000 season tickets. Atlanta comes in, it's got 55,000 fans on average. Then he went on to praise, other new teams as well. Orlando was supposed to be built with a 20,000-seat stadium. It expanded it to 27 because of the early, just rush on tickets. You have news that came out yesterday. Cincinnati is approaching the 20,000 season ticket mark. The only two teams that have that are Seattle and Atlanta right now. Also, to show the strength of the market in Cincinnati, this is from Pat Brennan at the Cincinnati Enquirer. FC Cincinnati will be a, quote, focus market for Adidas. FC Cincinnati's achieved MLS's second highest sales for merch in modern history of expansion through just 3 months. And I think a lot of that was even before the kit was released. So Cincinnati is second. We know Atlanta is outselling everybody. We've heard those numbers about what Atlanta has sold, whether it's through MLSsoccer.com, whether it's at retailers like Dick's Sporting Goods. But Cincinnati to come straight in and be a solid number 2 is big. It's big in a time where, now we'll see in the long haul as other big teams have introduced new kits. Seattle is one. I like their secondary kit, by the way. I like the black and pink. What do you think, John?
Yeah, no, I'm fine with it, and I know that the folks down in Miami are sitting there and saying,
that doesn't sound positive.
No, I mean, I dig pink and black. I'm one of those guys that if there's a pink kit that's cool, I'm going to pick it up. One of the kits in my collection is a Rangers pink kit.
Well, you could have picked up a DC pink kit if they had went with some of the designs that Pablo Maurer posted from The Athletic that were talked about, and they would have been interesting. They would have been far more interesting than a plain white kit.
Yeah. But no, give me a well-constructed pink and black kit, and I'm down with it. Does that mean that I'm going to buy the Seattle kit? No. Does it mean that I'm going to buy the Inter Miami kit? Probably at some point. But no, I like it when teams kind of go outside their comfort zone a little bit and try to think of other color schemes. And I know it's all about marketing and all this kind of stuff. I get it. But if you do it smartly, then I think it shows out. And I think that, A, with Seattle, I think it's going to catch on. B, with Cincinnati separately, good for them that they're showing up as a test market for Adidas. So
focus market, not test market.
Focus market.
Very different.
Thank you. Focus market. Yes, focus market. So a focus market for Adidas, and basically I'm just thinking of that one GIF that I think is the Little Rascals GIF where the dude is, or I think it's Spanky, is he's just throwing the money out the window.
Yes.
That's what I think is going to happen in Cincinnati. Basically, anything that Adidas throws at you in Cincinnati, a lot of folks are going to buy it. And I want to see how Adidas handles supply and demand. I want to see how Adidas handles the marketing of it all. I want to see how many different versions of product you're going to see and how out there they're going to get with it. Or are they just going to sit there and keep it within the FC Cincinnati colors, the lion, and all that kind of stuff? Because there have been some really good things that have been done locally with FCC. But, when you're looking at a focus market, how adventurous are you going to get? But wouldn't surprise me no matter.
But no, early on you're not, because this isn't Seattle. Seattle's been around for 10 years. FC Cincinnati has been around for a couple, and this is their first run in MLS. You're not going to get adventurous. You shouldn't. You have to establish your brand.
No, shouldn't.
So your secondary kit being kind of plain, that makes sense. You're establishing who you are and your color scheme and your lion and Gary and all of that. You've got to focus on that. I think when Adidas says focus market, it's not about testing a bunch of stuff. It's about really putting an emphasis on making sure that they have all kinds of different things for people to buy because the interest is there. Same as in Atlanta. So that's Cincinnati is doing great in that regard. But the other big headline from the ESPN article with Don Garber, he was asked if you could pick one market right now that in the next 5 years will rejuvenate and rechange itself, what would it be? Garber's answer was, I think we need new stadiums in New York and in Boston. We need a new stadium solution or a different stadium solution in Chicago. Those are three of the top markets in the country, and if they're able to solve what are legacy stadium projects and move to the downtown urban core, I'm convinced that those teams in large cities will give the league even more wind in its sails. That's a big, bold statement out of Garber. That's putting Revolution, that's putting the Fire, it's putting NYC. I don't think he's talking about Red Bulls, although he's talking about legacy stadium projects. It's a little, the NYC situation's a little different. He could be talking about the Red Bulls, honestly, because the rest of the answer does fit that story, but I don't know what would happen there. But all of those are issues, and the league is growing. The league is getting more attention. The financials are getting better and better without Chicago really having any impact on it, without New York having an impact on it in a way that they should be, without Boston and the Revolution being a key team in this league. That's a big deal. If you get one of them going in a big way, everything changes in an even bigger way. That's why Atlanta has been such an impact, because it is that combination of a new team with a lot of excitement, a big fan base, spending a lot of money, plus it's a big freaking city. It's not a small it's not Sporting Kansas City, who's done a great job rebranding, but they're smaller. It's a smaller city. It's a smaller package. Atlanta has been presented as big. It is big. It's a big city. All of it factors into making the league bigger and changing the way the league is growing. It's an interesting time for the league. I agree, though. If you get a Chicago, a New England Revolution, an NYC, maybe a Red Bulls, that transform who they are and what they are to be more impactful overall in the league, it's a massive benefit for Major League Soccer. And it's probably bigger than anything outside of Miami that you can add to the league. And that's no offense to what Cincinnati will do for the league. It's going to be big. Nashville, it's going to be big. It's going to be good. Austin, I think, could be good. A little more questions about Austin. We'll see. Sacramento, St. Louis, San Diego, whoever, wherever, Detroit, whatever is next, all have potential to be very good additions. Detroit maybe has a little more potential to be a very big deal. If you get I don't even know if a rebrand is the right word, because I don't think you need that outside of maybe the Revolution. If you get just a re-emergence into their markets from these big teams and they become largely relevant in their markets, it's as big of an addition to the league as you could get out of Miami. And I think Miami will be one that will change this trajectory even more and will keep pushing things forward in a bigger way, because it's big. You need big things. You need the base, too. You need the solid teams in the middle. That has to be there as well. But to make the jump, you have to be relevant in the biggest markets. And you're not in Chicago and New York and Boston. You're just not. And that's not acceptable anymore. see what happens. We're going to take a break. We're going to get Mike Conti on the line. We're going to talk about some questions you guys have had for him. We're going to talk about this U.S. Soccer proposed tournament as well with CONMEBOL. Get into all that and more after this. Stay with us.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student-athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back, Soccer Down Here. February 27th, hour number 2. It's a Wall Pass Wednesday. It means you guys have questions, and we try to have answers, and we found somebody to help us try to have some answers. Mike Conti now with us. What's up, Mike?
You got the wrong guy if you're looking for answers. I might have more questions than answers myself.
Well, I got a question for you to finish off where we were at the last segment.
Okay.
Don Garber was asked about which market could be the one that has a big change going forward. Talking about what happened in Columbus and the rebrand in Kansas City. And he mentioned the need for new stadiums in New York, in Boston, and a new stadium solution or different stadium solution in Chicago. And he said those were the big, I think, opportunities for growth for the league. You and I have talked about it, just the need for the league to be relevant in big markets. I think it's something every major league struggles with. But MLS has had this growth with really not being relevant in 3 of your biggest markets in the country.
Yeah, which is interesting. Let's go through those markets one by one. New York, I'm assuming he's talking about New York City, not Red Bulls.
It could kind of go either way, and I would agree. I think he's definitely talking about the Yankee Stadium situation, but he's talking in general about solving. He says if they're able to solve what are legacy stadium projects and move to the downtown urban core. So that's the one that I'm kind of like, is he talking a little about Red Bulls as well? I don't see them changing anything. I think it's more of NYC that has to make their first big stadium move.
I know I'm in the extreme minority, and I've been shouted down on this before. I actually think there's a certain benefit, and I understand the size of the pitch and how it's not regulation, not even close. You could pace it off, and they would probably put you in that Men in Black memory device to make you think how many paces it was. I do still think there is a little bit of a benefit to MLS being in Yankee Stadium. It's an iconic venue, number one, but I think more importantly, it gets you in one of the 5 boroughs. If you go out to Belmont Park, now you're a Long Island team, and there's accessibility with the LIRR and the subway and everything, but I think New York City's got something that's a little funky, a little different that I actually kind of like. Now, I know players don't like playing on it, and it's seen as something that makes the league a little less legitimate when you play on a pitch like that, but I'm not as anti-Yankee Stadium as most others are. And I've been in that debate before, and I gladly welcome it again. Boston, I think Robert Kraft, if it were up to him, I mean, the way that he is spending on his new training ground, I think if it were up to him and he could find something that would be workable where he wouldn't lose money, I think Robert Kraft would love to build a stadium somewhere close to the urban core of Boston. Remember, Boston was in line to host the Summer Olympics, I think in 2020 or 2024? And the voters in Massachusetts voted down every single funding instrument out there that would have allowed the city to construct a few venues that it needed to host the Olympics. So if Kraft is going to get any kind of public funding, and he's probably going to need at least a fraction of public funding to make it happen, he's probably in the wrong place to do so. Chicago's really complicated because aren't they in like some kind of unbreakable lease in Bridgeview or like something that is really going to make it hard for them to move? So I understand what Garber's saying. I don't know if it's as easy as just snapping your finger and finding a place to build a new stadium. And I agree that it's important for the league to be vital in their big markets. But you look at Cincinnati coming in, a team that I think will do it right. Miami, which is not a small market, they want to do it right. You look at some of the markets that are trying to get in the league. Indianapolis took another big step forward last night. I mean, that's not a big market, but they want to do it right. So if I'm the league, I want to bring in owners and clubs that want to be big clubs that want to help the league grow rather than dwell on some shortcomings that you have in your very biggest markets, because either way, the league is going to grow and benefit through those additions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I wouldn't want to sacrifice the additions of an Indy, of a St. Louis, of a Nashville, of an Austin, and the focus on them to just solely work on those big markets. But I think those owners really do need to feel that pressure. I think New England being what they are is just not acceptable. I think the Fire being what they are, it's not acceptable. NYC has to figure something out stadium-wise. It needs to be in the 5 boroughs. I completely agree. But that's not easy. Something's got to happen with that because I think long-term Yankee Stadium's just not feasible. Short-term, it's been good, but long-term, I just don't think it's the answer.
And I'm sure there's a reason why this never really went anywhere. But if you really want to be in the 5 boroughs, Columbia's got like a 15,000-seat American football stadium, which is probably not sufficient for MLS because there's a running track and, you're not going to be able to get a regulation FIFA pitch in there. But it's a piece of land that if you level the old stadium, you could probably build something else very quickly. And boom, then you're in Manhattan with a subway station right across the street. So there are places where you can do it in New York City. The problem is it's extremely expensive.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. Go ahead, John.
Well, no, I was just going to say, when it comes to Bridgeview, right now it's 2036 or 2037.
Yeah,
that's your departure year. But I think that in the era of those teams coming in, you're looking at, say, the New England Revolution, you're looking at Chicago Fire, you're looking at NYCFC, you're looking in these major market areas where you had owners in other sports because land was cheap, they could get a whole lot done, they could have their primary tenant out in the suburbs or the exurbs, really, if you're talking about Kraft. And I think that these days there is a push to do things in urban centers, and these owners are going to try to have to figure out ways to adjust in all of this, where when the teams came online initially, it was, trendy to be out in the suburbs, but now everything's drifting back and they're kind of stuck unless they want to have to build a second venue to get things done these days.
Yeah, John, and I really think if New England were to figure it out, like that's the club that really stands out to me. If New England were to find a way to get closer to the urban core of Boston, they would become a very, very big club overnight because the support is there. Boston is a very young city, a very ethnically diverse city. But no, I mean, Jason, you remember last year we went to Foxborough. You have to rent a car. There's no train. There is a train, but it's not really something that runs frequently or efficiently. You can't take an Uber from Boston to Foxborough.
And flying into Providence seems to be beneficial.
Yeah, but even there, you got to rent a car. So I think that's the one where, Bob Kraft, and I understand the financial realities of where he is right now with his soccer club. But, and I also understand the other financial realities he may be getting into very soon. But he spent a lot of money on a training ground. So, I mean, that to me indicates that he's got an interest in making New England Revolution a bigger club than what they are right now. Boston's the one. That's the white whale for this league. If you could find a way to get into downtown Boston near a T-stop, that would be a very big club overnight.
See, I'm even more on Chicago, though, because I think we've seen it in the earlier incarnations of the league where Chicago was a bigger deal when they played at Soldier Field. Now, you're going to have to deal with Bridgeview, and you're going to have to figure that out. Bridgeview doesn't really have a lot of leverage because they're in pretty dire straits at the moment. I know financially that city or township or whatever is having some serious problems. They're going to have to figure out a way out of this for everybody. And the stadium is a drain on the city as well of Bridgeview.
Right.
So you might be able to come to some kind of resolution. I don't think the proposed stadium that was part of the big development that ended up not happening, I don't think that was floated out there by accident. I think there is pressure being put on the Fire's ownership to step up and to move up a little bit here, because that's another one that we've seen it in the past where they've been a big deal. They're not right now. I mean, that was the one to me that was maybe most shocking traveling last year, was just the lack of interest in anything to do with the Fire from, the general sports public and the hardcore soccer fan in Chicago. The Fire are just completely irrelevant right now. Now, hopefully that they fix their issues with the supporters groups. That'll help. And hopefully they put a better product on the field because that will help. But right now there's just no motivation to go out to Bridgeview for a game. It's frustrating, and those are two big areas for the league that does need to grow alongside the new teams coming in. Another thing that I think will help everything grow is some news that broke yesterday. The New York Times had it first. U.S. Soccer has proposed to Concacaf, to CONMEBOL, to all of the member nations of CONMEBOL in South America to basically do the Copa America Centenario again and call it the Continental Cup in 2020. Everybody made money on that thing. It was such a big moneymaker that before it even happened, you had people getting arrested because of trying to make money on the deal. Like, it's that much of a no-brainer. So you have to do it. Now, I didn't see ESPN FC last night, but Nathan Pugh asked all of us about the tournament, and he says that Burley and Nickel said that it doesn't really do the U.S. or other CONCACAF teams any good to get beat up on by CONMEBOL. I disagree. We'll get into that in a second. But, Mike, what did you think about the Continental Cup and the idea of it, and good, bad, indifferent?
Love it. No, it's nothing but a positive. And I'll go back to the, Copa America back in 2016, which, by the way, I don't think was really promoted as well as it could have been.
Because everybody got arrested before it started.
Well, yeah, that doesn't help, obviously. But I think it also got lost in the ESPN hype train to the Euro 2016 a little bit because ESPN was showing the European Championships. The Copa America was on Fox.
You've got to together in a big way.
Yeah, you got to find a way to stand out a little bit. I know it'll be up against the European Championship, but I'm wondering from a broadcast rights standpoint, it's just one of the unfortunate facts of sports in America right now. The National Hockey League's dealing with this. NASCAR is dealing with it. If you want to be relevant, you have to be with ESPN somehow. If there's a way where you can split the rights, where ESPN gets a piece, maybe they can show some games after the European Championships and Fox gets some games, I think you'll be okay there. But to me, I mean, this is just another major step towards not only growing the game in the United States, but also it could be your first real dress rehearsal for the World Cup in 2026, if you think about it. I mean, you're probably going to be inviting, what do you think, Jason, 4 groups of 4, 16 teams maybe more.
You would do 16. You'd do 10 from South America and 6 from CONCACAF.
So you probably need 8 venues. Maybe Atlanta even gets in that mix. And now you're hosting, a meaningful full international for really the first time at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Anyhow, my point is this. I think, don't dwell on the fact that the U.S. men's national team might be undermanned against Chile or Colombia or Argentina. That's not what it's about. Even if the U.S. men's national team got knocked out in group and lost all 3 of their matches, you're still going to be putting 50 to 60,000 people in the Citrus Bowl, in Mercedes-Benz Stadium, in Jerry World in Dallas, in Houston, wherever they decide to play these matches. You're going to have tens of thousands of people coming out to watch soccer during a natural MLS break. It would be during the FIFA international window. I think this is something that MLS could benefit from, but certainly U.S. soccer could benefit from, and it just helps to grow the game here a little bit more. And by the way, not everyone who watches soccer in the United States is a fan of the U.S. men's national team. It's not about the way the home club performs, in my opinion.
No, not at all. John, what did you think about it?
Yeah, no, I was completely down with it. For me, if you're trying to get back, Loretta, to where you once belonged, then wouldn't you want to challenge yourself as much as humanly possible against the best competition that's out there? And Mike, to your point, if you get bounced in group, you've still played 3 quality teams in your group from this particular hemisphere, and you give yourself a good gauge as to where you are. And when the U.S. Soccer Federation is offering to underwrite the whole event, even though it may not be sponsored by the Gray Bar Hotel like it might have been the last time, I think that this is a win-win for finances and for the on-the-field product, because you get to challenge yourself in a situation like this.
Yeah, and that's a big part of it, John, because, look, you're not going to have the friendly opportunities with teams from Europe that you used to, not with the UEFA Nations League going on. So you're going to have friendlies against teams in this hemisphere, and you need competitive games to create a competition like this that can go alongside a Gold Cup that has more meaning just in CONCACAF. And you do this every 4 years alongside the Euros and get all of the marketing that goes alongside of it, all of the attendance. It's a no-brainer to have it in the United States. You can divide it up some. If 2024, since you don't have a Confederations Cup to prepare for the World Cup, 2024, this can be another dry run. You can even throw games into Canada and into Mexico as well.
Mm-hmm.
You could expand it a little bit if you wanted to, if CONCACAF teams are showing. But I completely disagree with Burley and Nickel about that it doesn't do anybody any good to get beat up on by CONMEBOL. Well, then just don't ever try to play in a World Cup. Don't ever try to play anybody better than you, and just play bad teams, and that's all you need to do. And, these are 2 soccer guys. They know better than that. That's a ridiculous comment. Go back and look at the last one. So the U.S. won their group in 2016, and that was not a strong United States team. They didn't qualify for the World Cup, we know. They weren't playing well at that point. They won their group. Costa Rica finished with 4 points. They had a win. They had a draw. Panama took it to the final match against Chile and had them on the ropes at different points. Chile went on to win the thing. So Jamaica struggled. Haiti struggled. That's going to make them better. Haiti getting these games against Peru where they lose 1-0 and a goal in the second half. That's a big deal. Jamaica has been to a World Cup before. This was a surprisingly poor performance from them, but they're a country that is going to benefit from this experience. Any CONCACAF team is going to benefit from this experience. The U.S. and Mexico are contenders for it. Costa Rica is a team that has knocked off some of these teams before in competition. You have to do this. You have to do this for the better of the game in South America, from a business perspective, from the betterment of the game in North America, Central America, the Caribbean, for a competition perspective. It's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. And when you do it on the up and up and you don't have everybody trying to bribe everybody for TV rights years out and sponsorship opportunities and people getting arrested, when you can get past all that and actually do it right, it will be a ridiculous moneymaker. The last one made a lot of money for a lot of people, and that was almost all on ticket sales because they didn't activate things like sponsorship and broadcast effectively. It was mostly ticket sales, and everybody made money. You actually get sponsors attached to this thing, and you actually promote it right, sky's the limit. And all the things you want to do from a U.S. perspective, if the U.S. drives this, all the things you want to do in terms of the U.S. Soccer Federation investing in the game, it's going to happen when they make money, and they're going to make money off of an event like this. It's a no-brainer to me, and I hope it happens, and I hope it's a big deal, and I hope it continues to be a big deal. This doesn't need to be a one-off. This needs to be an every 4-year kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think CONMEBOL is going to benefit just as much as CONCACAF, to be totally honest with you.
Cash.
And
they're going to get more money than the CONCACAF teams.
Exactly. They're going to get paid subsidies for travel. They're going to be paid training stipends and all of that. I mean, you had CONMEBOL people saying 4 or 3 years ago during Copa America that, look, we wanted to have the 100th Copa America in the United States because this is where the money is. They get it. This is how they're going to be able to grow their game, too. So it's just mutually beneficial for everyone. No downside at all.
No, it just makes sense for everybody. Mike, as we finish up, what are your thoughts day out from second leg CONCACAF Champions League, Atlanta United, Herediano?
Working on it right now here in the office. I'm updating some Herediano stuff based on what happened to them on Sunday. I think the fact that they went mostly second choice on Sunday pretty much confirms what we had been speculating, last Thursday and Friday in Costa Rica, that Herediano is looking at this as a fresh start. As look, we're 10th out of 12 in our league right now. We aren't having a very good year in the Clausura. Let's go all in on CONCACAF and let's try to be the Conca champions. And it's a really, really good opportunity for them. I just don't think, like we talked about last Friday, I don't think they're set up to park the bus, slash the tires, and try to play 90 minutes of Thunderdome and keep Atlanta United from scoring a second goal. I think that's losing strategy for them, to be quite honest with you. I think that's a strategy that would possibly get them knocked out. So I think Atlanta United, I would like to see them try to play the same game they played last Thursday from a tactical standpoint. I think they're in much better shape on a slower kind of artificial, natural hybrid surface, whatever you want to call it, at Kennesaw. And they're in the driver's seat now from the standpoint of you've got an opponent that had to play on Sunday. They're squarely in the middle of their league. They had to travel up here. They're here today. I don't know if they came in last night. I think they might have come in last night. So they've been here for a little while, sitting around, not doing much. Here's a real opportunity now for Atlanta United to jump on them early. And I think if Atlanta United gets a quick first goal tomorrow night, boy, that would be very, very big, because then Herediano probably feels like, uh-oh. I mean, maybe now we need to go forward, try to get that road goal, try to put ourselves in a position where we can get this to, potentially 2-1 and still advance, or 3-1 and have a chance in penalties. So I like where Atlanta United is. They did not play very well last Thursday, but I don't think they played poorly. I think the score line was misleading, and this is why you get the return leg. We saw Houston won on their return leg last night. Toronto did not, but Toronto's a mess right now. So let's see what happens tomorrow night. But I'm very much looking forward to it. I think Atlanta United's got a really, really good chance. I don't think this is hopeless in any stretch.
Yeah, not at all. I think it's going to be down to who scores first in a lot of ways. It's going to be critical to get that first goal, and earlier the better. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a fun one. It's going to be intense, too. And we'll be on the air an hour before kick with Five Stripes Countdown, an extended CONCACAF version starting at 7 o'clock, and then we'll have the full-time report for an hour after the final whistle.
Did you guys see, by the way, that I guess Herediano was trying to put together like a travel pack for some of their supporters where they could get on a chartered plane, get 3 nights of hotel up here, and a discounted game ticket, kind of like a bowl game? I think that's awesome. I hope that there's some Herediano supporters up here tomorrow night, because they were really fun to be around last Thursday. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, I think Herediano or at least a radio station in Costa Rica is coming up to do the game. So
yes,
they're
just about
taking
positive
this,
that's happening.
They're taking this just as seriously as we took it last week. And I think that would be awesome if there were at least a small number of Herediano supporters at Fifth Third Bank Stadium tomorrow. It would really add to the atmosphere.
I hope we get to hear the Pollo Landia commercial through the wall. I'm looking forward to that from our friends at Radio
Vamos
Colombia. Vamos Pollo Landia for sure.
Ultimo minuto.
Right.
Oh, man. All right. Thanks, Mike. We appreciate it. I will see you tomorrow in Kennesaw.
All right. Can't wait, guys. Take it easy.
Be good.
Mike Conti 929 on Twitter. Make sure you're following him. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We'll talk about some broadcast deals that have been announced around the league, and we'll talk shape and formations because that is a big topic this morning on a Wall Pass Wednesday. Hang out with us. We'll be right back.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, February 27th edition. A couple bits of broadcast news from around the league. Columbus finalized their multi-year partnership with Fox Sports Ohio. Neil Sika, Dwight Burgess come back on the call. Neil's 13th year doing it. Dwight's 24th year behind the mic in Columbus. 33 crew matches this 2019 season, as well as 30-minute pre- and post-game shows. Also, all streaming on Fox Sports Go in the Columbus market. Awesome, because they did not have a good deal before. I think they were on one of the Spectrum sports channels or something, and it was kind of a mess from what we heard. This is a big partnership. That's great.
Yeah, and when you compare up with Fox Sports Ohio, with, I know that obviously Atlanta fans are familiar with the coverage that you get on Atlanta United, to continue that kind of uniformity where you can pick up anything on Fox Sports Go. And I know that there's going to be there are, I think, a handful of others that have relationships with Fox Sports regionals. And, this, to be able to have this kind of depth of coverage, considering where they were in the past, you just sit there and go, good deal, and once again, it's another step in the new ownership group and the new approach seemingly by Columbus Crew in trying to get their product out there with everything that's happening.
Yeah, one thing about the Fox Sports Go streaming stuff, keep this in mind, that is geo-blocked. That is if you have a subscription that includes Fox Sports Go. So if you are traveling and you have a subscription to a cable package that includes Fox Sports South and Fox Sports Southeast, you can watch Atlanta United games broadcast on those channels through logging into your cable provider. You can't watch the Columbus games because you don't have that subscription.
No.
So Keep that in mind. That's why ESPN Plus is still a valuable piece as well. On the radio side, FC Cincinnati announced their deal. They're going to be on 3 different stations. WDJO is the flagship radio station. They're also on simulcast on 3 of the network stations in the greater Cincinnati area. Also available on TuneIn by searching WDJO. So you're going to be able to listen on mobile and desktop. That's going to be the TV package of Tom Galerter, Kevin McCloskey, Lindsey Patterson handling those calls. So when it's a national TV broadcast, which Cincinnati will be on starting against Seattle, I think. Is that a national game on the second on Saturday?
I think it is.
I think it is. I think it's a FS1 game late. And the Atlanta game, you'll have your TV crew locally for Cincinnati calling those games for radio only. When they call a game for local TV, it'll be simulcast over to radio.
And can we get an air horn?
Yes, we can right now. What do we have?
FC Cincinnati has cleared 20,000 season tickets. They were approaching it yesterday, but they put out a release that they are now on the north end of 20,000 season tickets, 4th in MLS among season ticket sales in 2019, 3rd most among all MLS expansion teams' first-year sales behind 2017 Atlanta, Seattle 2009. And to celebrate said achievement, FC Cincinnati has planned a community-wide beautification project in cooperation with Keep Cincinnati Beautiful and more than 50 Cincinnati area community organizations. They're going to plant 20,000 blue and orange flower blooms around the city, a majority of which will be planted in various welcome to neighborhood signs. And then you have Jeff Birding quote, and the release continues.
Very, very cool. Figured they would get there. I want to see what the final number ends up at. And I want to see where they cap it, because their new West End Stadium is not going to be able to hold everybody. So I think they're going to cap the season tickets for Nippert wherever they're going to cap it for the West End Stadium. And it can't be a whole lot more than it already is. So I think that's a 26.5 is what they're looking at in the West
they're
End.
Right up against it.
Yeah, so maybe a little bit more, but they want to keep some available for group tickets and single packages and stuff like that. Steve the Pirate with a question. Let's get to Atlanta United stuff because we have quite a few questions. Steve asks about roster compliance. Have any decisions been made on Aseyadu, Hernandez, Wild, Gallagher, Pereira et al.? It's different for each one. Let me see if I can get everybody up to date on where things stand. Anderson Aseyadu is not under contract as of yet. He played for ATL UTD2 on Saturday in Chattanooga. I think the decision on him is it going to be an MLS deal with a loan to USL, or is it going to be a USL deal? A lot of it depends on where they see him factoring into the first team this year, and I would expect you get a resolution there very soon. Roster compliance is Friday, so we're not going to know roster compliance things until Friday, until it's released. I think there's a lot of concern about Hernandez, Wild, Gallagher, Pereira, et cetera, et cetera. Those guys are all on first-team deals. Whether they start the year on loan to Atlanta United 2 or not, it doesn't affect their first-team status. That can be recalled. I don't think there's a situation where you're trying to loan somebody for the year without a recall. I don't expect anything like that. I'm not expecting anybody to be loaned outside of the organization that I know of at this point, not like we saw with Okonkwo and Wild last year to Charleston. Wild, I don't think is going to be loaned, just based off the fact he was in the 18 in Costa Rica. I think he has progressed to the point that they want him in the 18, so I don't see him being loaned anywhere. Okonkwo played with the twos on Saturday, as did Gallagher and Pereira. I could see both of them loaned to start the season. And I know, because it's probably being typed out right now, the international slot issue. I know it's going to come up. Let's refresh. So, 8 slots, 11 players currently. Barco, Escobar, Gallagher, LGP, Gressel, Hernandez, Pity Martinez, Dion Pereira, not Paul Pogba. I keep wanting to do that. Florentine Pogba.
Wow.
Eric Rametti, Gordon Wild. Hey, I'm not the only one. Don't give me that. Don't give me that nonsense. Everybody's done that. Anyway, who's going to get loaned to get you compliant? Pereira, Gallagher, Hernandez right now, off the top of my head. That's 3. you're compliant. Done. And I think those are three guys based off what we saw with ATL UTD2. Hernandez played with ATL UTD2 on Saturday as well against Chattanooga Red Wolves. I think that's your three guys. I think Wild stays with the first team. I think Pereira, Gallagher, Hernandez are your three that are loaned to ATL UTD2. You're roster compliant. You're good to go.
No, I'm looking forward to our season with ATL UTD2 just to see the players who are sent down to work with the twos, and obviously getting our first taste of that and seeing how they were becoming acquainted with each other against Chattanooga Red Wolves last Saturday. I thought it was just a good shaking of hands and how do you do and getting acquainted with one another. But I'm looking forward to seeing what the roster is going to look like and what the approach is going to be for everybody, because you could get called up at a moment's notice, and you've got to be ready to play for Atlanta United.
It's going to be interesting to see how this balances throughout the year, and that does factor into the Asayadu potential deal. The thing we don't know is how things are going to break down between senior roster spots, between supplemental roster spots, between reserve roster spots, and we'll know that once the rosters are published by MLS, probably late in the day on Friday. Assuming Florentine Pogba would have to be in a senior roster spot, if Asayadu is signed, he would be in a supplemental or reserve roster spot. He would then, again, back to the international slot, he would take one up, so he'd probably be loaned to start the season based off the fact he played with the twos on Saturday. That just the contract situation for Asayadu is just dependent on, do you see him playing with the first team this year? If you do, you need to sign him to a first team deal if you have the room. If you don't, sign him to a USL deal. It makes everything a little bit easier. And Amir Bashti was not with the team in Chattanooga, and I don't believe he is still with the team. I've not heard an update on that. He was the second-round pick who did play with the team in friendlies out in California. Haven't heard an update on his status, but he was not under contract either. Let's break here, and let's talk 3-4-3 and formation and lineups and all of that after a break. If you have any questions about tactics, lineups, what have you, now's the time. Send them our way for a Wall Pass Wednesday at Soccer Down here on Twitter. We'll be right back.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Got issues with youth or high school sports? Positive Coaching Alliance can help. PCA is a national nonprofit working to transform youth and high school sports so that every child has a positive character-building youth sports experience. PCA provides live and online workshops to train double-goal coaches whose first goal is winning and whose second, more important goal is teaching life lessons through sports. PCA also has workshops for parents and high school student athletes. For more information, please visit positivecoach.org.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. This cat makes me make art. He's always motivating me to draw pictures of him. He just is motivating artistically. He's my best friend, but a lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
Keyboard Cat, YouTube star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Start yours today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back. Tactics time. A lot of questions about Atlanta United and the 3-4-3 and what Frank DeBoer might change going into the second leg against Herediano. Let's get to the questions from Twitter, John. What do we have?
I feel like we need an open for something like this. Tactics time.
No,
I know, we didn't make
no, we're not recording one of those.
something very 80s-ish. Shiva, do you think we have the right players in our squad for a 3-4-3?
Yes, 100%. 3-4-3, I don't know. Like it's different than what we generally have seen in this league and from teams in MLS historically. So I think that's part of the reason that there's a reaction to it. It's exotic. It's I don't know. It's European. It's I don't know what it is. It's different. It's not crazy different. A lot of people have zeroed in on the two central midfielders. I mean, let's look at the components real quick that you need. You need 3 center backs who can play with the ball at their feet. You have that. You need wing backs who can defend, get forward, and also play in the midfield as needed. I think you have that. You need 2 central midfielders that are dynamic, who can fulfill multiple roles. I think you have that. You need attacking players who can drift out wide but can also drift inside and fulfill multiple functions, not just straight up, attacking wingers, but are comfortable inside on the ball. You need that. And you need a number 9 who can score goals. You have that. I think you're in a good spot. I think you have the pieces to do it. It takes time. It's not something that happens overnight. When you're playing with a style like this, it does require on a lot of quick decisions, does require on things being instinctual. It's something that takes time to build, and that's what Atlanta United is doing. So I like the idea, and I think you have the personnel to do it. I think you have the personnel to change up looks in it, where it's a little more defensive, where it's a little more attack-minded, where you can do different things inside of it. So, yeah, I'm completely comfortable with the idea of it.
All right, so then following up, Tafka, my concern with the 3-4-3. I know the wingers are supposed to cut in to fill the void that a central attacking mid would occupy, but I never saw PT or Barco do that in anticipation of the ball. They only did so once they already had the ball, and I felt it made us very one-dimensional.
Disagree. I think there were a lot of times in the match that PT, especially PT, Barco to a lesser extent, received the ball in a central spot. Honestly, this is what's been interesting about this is I've seen the criticism the other way is that they weren't wide enough at times to combine with Bello and Gressel when they got forward, and those guys were left on an island. I think it's a work in progress. I think you want to get to the point that these guys are moving. Again, it's an instinct. You don't have to think about it is where you want to get. But I disagree that it didn't happen. It wasn't happening. It was one-dimensional. I think what made it one-dimensional is not that. I think what made it one-dimensional is the fact that it got disconnected. And you weren't moving the ball forward in a patient way. To me, the way this thing is going to work is you have a lot of possession, you complete passes at a high percentage, and your possessions last longer. That's the biggest difference from 2018 to 2019. Last year, even when the team was sitting back, when the team was in possession, you saw them when they looked up and had any kind of space, they went and took it. And that's a lot down to Miguel Almirón's nature and the way he plays. That's not going to work in the 3-4-3 as well because it's going to get disconnected. When you saw Pity Martinez get on the ball centrally, when you saw Ezequiel Barco get on the ball and cut inside, dribbling across, you saw them going on their own with the other attacking winger and Joseph, and that was it. The wingbacks couldn't get forward in time. They're running to try to catch up. Remedi's trying to get forward to help and support. You have to build possession slowly to get everybody forward. That's a very different mindset. Without a Miguel Almirón, I think it's the correct mindset. But it takes time to understand, no, I know it looks like there's space right now, but you're running into 3 versus 5 or 3 versus 4, and that's not what you want. You want to create the numerical superiority. You don't just want to go because you have the opportunity to go and there's a sliver of space. That's the biggest point here. And when you do that, that's when you can get Pity and Barco inside centrally more often. That's when you can get them making the decision on the opposite side of the ball to help and support and get wider and create 2v1s with a big switch. That's when you can get the ball to a Gressel, to a Bello, not on an island, with more options than just bombing in across. That's when you can get your two central midfielders up a little bit higher, and you can get your three center backs up higher, and everybody is connected more. What happened in Costa Rica on Thursday, there was a lot of space between the lines. You don't want that in a 3-4-3. You have to be compact and condensed. Now, that means you're going to play a high line. That's why Miles Robinson as the center back of the three is critical, because he can recover and he can drop and save it. But you're going to play a high line. You want to get everybody forward. You want to get that possession, dominate possession, and create chances at the end of it, not have turnovers at the end of it. When all of that happens, I don't think you see these little elements like Tafka's talking about Pitti or Barco not getting the ball inside enough, or your wingbacks getting the ball on islands too much. You're not going to see that as much when your possession is more patient, a little bit slower, and you get everybody forward and connected in the shape.
Brandon at Subsailor 773. Which other formations is Frank known for using? I feel like Barco should be more central.
He's played a 4-3-3 before at Ajax when he first came in, and 4-3-3 is very native to Ajax, as is the 3-4-3. I mean, they've done both. That's one thing that I think people have been a little confused about. Ajax is the idea of what Ajax is and the way they play. It's not defined by formation. Johan Cruyff kind of redefined it into the 3-4-3 after it evolved out of a 4-3-3 initially. They've done both, and De Boer has done both. He's also done some 3-5-2. I could see Barco central. I could see a situation where this team at different points plays a 4-2-3-1 with Barco as a 10, Pitti on the left side, Tito on the right. I can see that. I think you have the pieces to do it. You could also see a situation where it's a little bit more of two attack-minded central midfielders in front of one defensive one if you're playing three central, if you're playing a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1 or 4-1-4-1, whatever you want to call it, it's all the same thing. If it's a four-man backline, you could do that, and it could be Barco and Nagbe in front of Remedi or Lorenowitz. Could easily see that. I think you have the personnel for it. But in that shape, too, you're going to want to play, because this is bigger than shape. Philosophy about possession, controlling it, getting your team connected, moving forward up the field. You're going to want to play at a slightly slower pace, more passes, longer possessions in a 4-3-3 and a 3-4-3. Right now, you're trying to build that element in. So you've been doing it out of the 3-4-3. I don't know if you're going to be comfortable shifting it right now. And I know a lot of people are like, just change the formation. It's no big deal. It is a big deal. It's not easy to do. And you want to make sure you have the pieces to cover where things can break down. I feel like you can do that a little more effectively out of the 3-4-3 right now if you're not building up possession slowly, patiently, and getting your players forward. I think you can do that with three center backs, with Miles Robinson as kind of a safety valve, with wing backs who can drop deeper as needed. They didn't do that enough in Costa Rica when the game was turning against them. They needed to do that a little bit more. I think you have more outs in the 3-4-3 if things aren't going right than you do in a 4-3-3 at the moment. Later in the season could be a different conversation. One more before we go to break.
Then, okay, and it's Tafka's response to Brandon in answering about the 4-3-3, where he does have Barco playing centrally. Gressel, this is presuming that there's a healthy joker involved. He has Gressel rotating in, Miles rotating in, and no mention of Jeff Lorenowitz.
This has been an ongoing thing for 2 years now about pushing Jeff Lorenowitz out. I just don't think it's that easy. In the 4-3-3, in this lineup that Tafka has posted, which would be Bello, LGP, Parkey, Escobar across the back line, Nagbe, Remedi sitting behind Barco, Pitti, Joseph, Tito up top. I mean, you could call it a 4-2-3-1 if Pitti and Tito are a little more dropped. We get so focused on numbers and formations, and we're missing some of the bigger points here. If you do this, I will tell you what the issues are, Tafka, if you're playing the way Atlanta's playing, because this is the bigger thing. If you're trying to control possession and you're focused on stringing passes together, I want you to think back to different points in the last 2 years where you did have passes strung together, you did have a turnover at midfield, and you saw teams break in behind Parkhurst and LGP. Because it's not a new phenomenon. It has happened before. We've seen it. If you're going to be so much more focused on possession and controlling it and getting players forward and playing a high line defensively, if you do that in the 4-3-3 and you don't have Miles Robinson there, Parkhurst and LGP are going to get lit up when the ball turns over. You're going to be asking Escobar to make that run, but if your possession was on the right side of the field and he's up high, you're in trouble. You're going to be asking Remedi to drop into there. But if he's up forward in possession, you're in trouble. I don't think they're ready for the 4-3-3 just yet if they're going to play this way. Now, if they go in with a completely different strategy and they're at a point in the preseason where Frank DeBoer is comfortable doing that, if they go in and say, you know what, guys, we're not going to focus on having 60% of the possession. We're not going to focus on dominating possession. We're going to focus on playing fast. We're going to focus on exploiting this element of Herediano. And for me, the first one that would jump out would be right back Omar Ariano. He's a converted midfielder. He's not all that fast. You want to create 2v1s against him. You want to run at him all day. Okay, that's your game plan. Go do it. Go execute. It's a different game plan. If you go in with the game plan of what you're trying to build and your philosophy that you're trying to build, you're possession dominant, you're going to control games via possession, I think the 4-3-3 is riskier than the 3-4-3 in that way because you only have two center backs who are back because you're going to be asking Bello and Escobar to go. Now, if you can change it, or Gressel in this case, if you can change it, change their mindsets to where they're going to sit more. I think, one, you might be looking at Breck Shea on the left or Mikey Ambrose on the left instead of Bello because Bello really wants to go forward right now. On the right, Escobar can sit a little bit more. But we saw last year in the postseason how effective he can be when he goes. Gressel, we know, wants to go forward. You don't want to leave your two center backs exposed. That's why you have three right now. These are the things that go into this. It's not as simple as saying, well, just play a 4-3-3. It's fine. Just play a 4-2-3-1. Just play a 4-4-2. You work on things for 4 or 5 weeks. You're not going to throw it out because of one result where you had two individual mistakes lead to 2 goals and one time where multiple players made bad decisions. I don't think you throw that out because of it. You also don't throw it out because you created chances going the other way. Some of those you expect to convert. So it was a far more even game than the scoreline showed, in my opinion, in Costa Rica. You can argue with me on that if you want. That's completely fine. I think Atlanta had chances. I think Herediano had chances based off individual mistakes more than team breakdowns for the most part. Those things have to get cleaned up, of course, in the second leg. But I don't think it's as easy as just changing the formation. If Frank DeBoer comes out in a different type of shape and the team is playing differently than a team that wants to dominate possession, that means he's really comfortable with where this team is tactically. And that's a great sign. Whether you get the result or not, that's a great, great sign if they show a very different type of look here. I don't know if they're there yet. I'm not there every day. I don't know where they are tactically at the moment. But if they do something very different tomorrow night, that's a great, great sign for how tactically flexible this team can be this season. We'll see. It's a big ask to be able to do that in Game 2 in Concacaf Champions League before your MLS season's even started. It's a big ask. We'll see. Let's take a break. Final break here. If you have any final questions, throw them our way on Twitter at @SoccerDownHere. We'll be right back.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Every hiring manager knows that a company is only as good as the people it's made from. So where do you find the best people? That may surprise you.
Meet the grads of life. Young adults of unique determination and experience. An ideal fit for your company in an entry-level position, internship, or even mentorship. They might not have every qualification you typically look for, but they're exactly who your company needs.
This is talent worth knowing about.
Go to gradsoflife.org to learn how to find, cultivate, and train this great pool of untapped talent. Brought to you by the Ad Council and gradsoflife.org.
Welcome back. Final segment, Soccer Down here, February 27th edition. Doug Robertson with some news on his Twitter, Doug Robertson AJC. Make sure you're following him. George Bello, undisclosed injury, won't be available on Thursday. And Doug said appears, but it's not looking good. So Bello out for Thursday. You would assume that means Breck Shea, maybe Mikey Ambrose. I think both are options here. Kratz will also not be available. He has been injured during a lot of the preseason, so that's not a huge surprise. And Escobar's unavailable, and we expected that one. So no Bello for Thursday. That changes things a little bit. Breck Shea is just a different type of player. He's also been in this situation before. So more questions on tactics. I think we have a few more to get to before we finish up.
Yeah, a couple are Nagby-based. Friend of the show, Patrick Sullivan, at ATL Soccer Past. How worrying should it be that the team appears to be so reliant on one player, Nagby, at the start of the season? How is this mitigated as the season progresses and rotation/potential injuries occur?
I don't think they're reliant on Nagby. I think he played well. I think he's been called man of the match in that, and I think that's a little much because he didn't play that much, and he played well, but I think we're reaching a little bit here. I think this team can function with Larinowitz and Remedi as the two central midfielders if everything is working in sync. I think it can function with Larinowitz and Nagby. I think it can function with Remedi and Nagby. And I think I'll give you some different looks and some different perspectives and different characteristics to it. I would like to see in this one where you want to be a little more on the front foot going forward, I'd like to see Nagby from the start. And that means you're going to sacrifice either Jeff Larinowitz or Eric Remedi. If you feel like Remedi can give you that discipline as a guy who's going to sit a little bit more, your two central midfielders are not playing one in front of the other in a 3-4-3. It's definitely more side to side, but that can shift as things happen in possession. You want Remedi to be comfortable and understanding that he's going to have to stay home a lot more than he has been in a 3-4-3 next to Nagby. Larinowitz, I think we know, can do that. He's done that throughout his career. He's maybe a little more comfortable in that role right now, but I'd love to see a situation, and I'm not saying Jeff Larinowitz doesn't play a lot of big minutes for this team. Not at all. I think he does. But in this situation on Thursday, where you do need to go forward more, and you do need to be a little more dynamic in the attacking half, I'd like to see Remedi and Nagby together, if you can make that work. With Remedi sitting a little more, Nagby stepping up to support Pitti and Tito and Barco and Joseph and whoever it is, and your wingbacks. I think Nagby being able to drift out wide and give them 2v1 opportunities will be very important too.
Swixter along those lines, and we pretty much, I think, have kind of answered the question. What are the odds Nagby starts? When he was subbed on last week, there was a noticeable change for the good.
Yeah, definitely. No idea on the odds. It just depends on where you're at and what you're trying to do here. But I could see it either way. I mean, I could see you start with the same group and the same group in the middle, and then Nagby comes on as a sub. I could see him start, and if you get the lead which is kind of where I would like to see it, is you start Nagbe, you take care of business with goals, and when you want to shut it down, you bring on Jeff Larentowicz as the game progresses to close things up. That would be a great situation to be in. Got to get the goals going the other way first, but I think that would be an ideal spot to be in if you can get Nagbe and Remedi together. If that pairing works, I'd love to see it because I think it would give you a little more going forward, and you got to have goals here.
Michael Valverde wanted to know how does DeBoer get PT and Barco to stop trying to play the same position? They seem to crowd each other a lot last week.
Yeah, that you want them playing next to each other. It's not about crowding as a bad thing. I think this is something that we've kind of had ingrained in us growing up in the States and playing in youth clubs here and listening to coaches here about space is something you want to be away from everything. Not when you're Pity Martinez and Ezequiel Barco and you're that good on the ball. You can play in a phone booth. And you like to have that. Because if you have two guys playing right there next to each other, you can put two defenders out of the play quickly with their skill. And the flip side is they have to be skillful to do it. You don't want poor technical players playing in the same space because they can't play out of trouble. They can't play out of tight spaces. These guys can. So when they do that, it has to produce. You have to make those decisions, and that's what this team is working towards, in my opinion, is knowing when to create overloads, when to create those opportunities where, all right, they're playing next to each other. They're either trying to draw defenders into a space to play it out to another spot quickly, or they're trying to create a 2v1 or something like that, and when to stay more spread out, when to find space outside of that. You want to get it to where it's natural to do it. I don't think they're quite there yet. But those two guys playing next to each other, I'm completely comfortable with it, as long as it leads to an end product. And we didn't get enough of the end product in the first half in Costa Rica on Thursday.
Then the last thought on the board comes from Sherbs on the hashtag Wallpass Wednesday. To be fair, we immediately threw out the 4-2-3-1 after Houston last year. It's a different situation. And then we presumably only had time to train one formation under FDB, but the players are also familiar with others from the past 2 years.
They are, but it's a very different situation than last year. In that second game against DC last year, I'm trying to remember what the lineup was. Give me just a second. Bear with me as we pull this up, because this is important to look at how things did shift in that one. It's a 3-1 win at home at Mercedes-Benz. You got the goal from Martinez early, 1-0 for a long way, and then Miguel Almiron and Tito Villalba, 2 goals quickly, and Darren Maddox scored late to make it 3-1. So you came into that one and you played Escobar, Parkhurst, LGP as your 3 center backs, Garza, Gressel as your wing backs, Larentowicz, Nagbe, Almiron as your 3 central midfielders, Joseph and Tito up top. So you played a pretty true 3-5-2, 5-3-2. The difference is you worked on that during preseason. You worked on that at the end of your 2017 season. Remember Tata Martino talking about working on 3 in the back. That was a big surprise leading into that. So you weren't able to do it in Houston. And I think one reason you weren't able to do it was Michael Parkhurst wasn't able to start that game. He came on as a sub when LGP was injured, but he wasn't able to start. So you were really shifting things around. You had Chris McCann in the central midfield. You had Larentowicz starting in the back line. It just was bad. LGP having one of his worst individual performances made it a whole lot worse. So that was a problem. I don't know how much you've worked on other shapes here. You do have players who have done it. They didn't do it with Pity Martinez. And that's a factor. Because you can play the 4-2-3-1 that you did before that Tata Martino shifted away from. Let's remember this. You played a 4-2-3-1 that did not win the MLS Cup for you. You shifted to a 3-5-2. Do you want to shift to that? That's a little more comfortable of a change than the 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3 that people have talked about. If you want to go to that, you could. It's just moving some different pieces around. You're playing 3 in the back. You'd probably play it the same way as you've played with Robinson in the middle of LGP and Parkhurst. You want to keep that continuity between the 3-4-3 that you've worked on. That's fine. You have your wingbacks, probably going to be Breck Shea and Julian Gressel in this case. That's fine. That's similar to what you would do in the 3-4-3. You're going to sacrifice a little bit in the front to be more solid in the middle, because I would assume that in that shape you would play two of your central midfielders, and it would probably be 2 of 3 of Lorenowitz, Remedi, Nagbe as your 2 sitting deeper. Probably Barco as your 10 in that case, or you can play Pity Martinez there if you want to get Tito up top with Joseph, or it's going to be Pity or Barco up top with Joseph. It changes things a little bit. It doesn't have a huge dramatic change. You could start the same 11 and go from 3-4-3 to 3-5-2 pretty easily. It's a little more of how you want to position players from the start. I don't think your philosophy would change, and that's the most important thing. You're trying to control possession and create chances by controlling possession. That's the key here. I don't think that changes in shape, but I don't think you go to 4 in the back. I don't. I think that's riskier with where this team is building, and I think if you look back to past history, Tata Martino realized that this team was better with 3 in the back. 3 center backs, to be very clear on that. It can turn into a line of 5, but he went away from the 4-2-3-1 and he went to this. I think Frank de Boer is tweaking it to more of a 3-4-3 than a 3-5-2. If you want to go 3-5-2, I think you could here without really changing philosophy. I don't know what your impact would be outside of being possibly if Pity or Barco as your 10, if they're going to sit a little bit deeper than your front 2, you're changing your starting positions a little bit, and if they're going to come back and help defensively a little more, that's all it really changes. But I don't think you go to 4 in the back. I really don't.
We're officially caught up, sir.
All right. I know we had some other questions and stuff, too, about some comments from the show. We'll try to chime in on those on Twitter. Busy day today. I'm on the air at 92.9 with Rick and John at 1 o'clock. We have stoppage time with myself and Jimmy Vance at 2 o'clock. Mike Conti is finishing up his vacation. He was kind enough to hop on the line with us today as he's finishing up his vacation before he comes back into the booth tomorrow. So all that stuff today, this afternoon, then also Concacaf Champions League tonight. And the big one from an Atlanta United perspective is Monterrey and Alianza at 10 o'clock. Going to have to see what happens there to see who Atlanta or Herediano could be facing in the quarterfinals. The other games I think are pretty comfortable. Santos Laguna 6-2 lead over Marathon, and Red Bulls with a 2-0 lead over Atletico Pantoja. They should be able to take care of that. I think those are pretty self-explanatory, pretty easy. We'll see about Monterrey. I think they take care of business in a big way. We'll see if Alianza can frustrate them and take them out of their comfort zone. That could be a fun one. I hope it is. I hope it's at least drama until the second half. That's what I'm hoping for there.
Yeah, so looking forward to catching up with things either on Univision Deportes or Yahoo Sports, where since it was Copa MX last night, everything had rolled over to Yahoo. So I know that some folks were kind of confused about where to take a peek, but I think tonight it's on UDN and Yahoo Sports.
And chime in at Chelsea FC as well. They tweeted asking who would you want to sign in the summer? Maybe Toronto should have done that. Maybe Toronto should have just put up a question and said, who do you want to sign? What should we do here?
Yes.
Maybe they should do the Chelsea model. Chelsea posted
Toronto
an article.
doesn't have a transfer ban.
They don't. Well, Chelsea doesn't yet either. Don't get me wrong. Just because somebody said they have a transfer ban, we've heard that before about Barcelona and Real Madrid and everybody else and appeals and things. Yeah. So anyway, Chelsea posted an article about Chelsea to battle Juventus and Man United for AC Milan captain. It's kind of interesting to come from the club account, but anyway. Maybe they're just going to do transfer by committee, by social media. So maybe this is a new thing. Go chime in. Tell Chelsea what they should do this summer.
Ownership.
Yeah. Anyway.
Front office engagement.
Yeah, that's a little bit too engaged. All right. We're done. We're going to be back tomorrow with Felipe Cardenas joining us at 10 o'clock. We'll talk CONCACAF. If you have any questions as the day goes on, tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Thanks, everybody, for all the great conversation this morning. We greatly appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. Mucho platiel.
Mucho platiel.